Hello, I'm Paul Beckwith, and right now I'm in western Alberta. I'm right where the Great Plains of Alberta meets the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, just west of Lethbridge, Alberta. And I'm at a site called the Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump. So I'm hiking along a trail, and I'm just going to show you some of the scenery and explain some of the history of the site, which has a very unusual name, of course. So this is the view from the trail here. So that's looking, right now I'm looking east from the foothills of the Rockies, and you can see some of the escarpment up there in the distance. And beautiful scenery, but it's extremely hot. It's about 33 degrees or something, so I can't complain. It's not, those temperatures near 50 degrees Celsius, that we've had in BC, and no wildfires here. It's bone dry. They really caution people against sparks and so on. You can see some wind turbines off in the distance here. Of course, in the foothill of the Rockies, you get the wind coming from west to east, and then it goes down slope and gains speed. So you can get some, decent winds. So there's a whole bunch of different wind farms. You can see this one here, and then if we go over here, you can see a whole lot more in the distance. You can see them barely on the horizon. So there's quite a few renewable energy projects in Alberta, lo and behold. So I'll just walk along the trail. So basically the idea was the buffalo were hunted in this technique where you would herd them together, direct them, sort of trap them in this passageway, and then get them all scared from behind you. You didn't have horses back in the early days. That was only more recent, and these buffalo would be herded, and when they reached a cliff face, they couldn't stop because of the herd pushing them from behind. So they'd plummet right over the cliff, about 10 meters, 30 odd feet. They'd plummet down to the ground. It wouldn't kill them, it would break their legs and make them immobile, and then when they had enough immobile, they could go and do the butchering. And the First Nations people, that was the Blackfoot in this region, they didn't have any waste. I mean, they used the bones to make tools and to grind into powders and stuff, which had sort of medicinal or properties, or even some nutritional properties with the bone marrow. And they would, of course, use the furs to build shelters and to draw, sort of make the cloth or the leather for the teepees. And they, of course, had huge amounts of meat. And after a successful hunt, they could basically go for a long time without having to hunt again. So they would, be able to pursue other activities, artistic activities, cultural activities, because they weren't always wondering and worrying about where their next meal was. So they were definitely doing this, about 11,000 years ago. Of course, we had the glaciation, and this, we had the ice coverage, and then, as the climate warmed, the glaciers receded, and there's this is a World Heritage Site, a UNESCO site, so on par with the pyramids and other UNESCO sites. And archaeologists have done a lot of work, at the base of the cliff, digging down, and the cliff is 10 meters, 12 meters high. Buffalo come over and land, and then they're cleaned and skinned, and the bones just become part of the soil underneath. So you can go down, they go down about 12 feet. You can find different layers of rock and bone, and the arrowheads of the weapons that the First Nations people use. So in the archaeological record, we know from that we can get estimate as to the length of time in which they were doing, driving the buffalo over the cliffs. They were doing it about 6,000 years ago, and they did it for at least 5,500 years. And it was done in a sustainable fashion. They took what they needed. They didn't take extra. They used every component of it. And, of course, the white man came along and basically finished off the bison and the buffalo over a relatively short period of time. So it's very windy up here, which you'd expect, like I said, because of the topography change. And there's all these sort of interpretive signs here. I think you can see this. So this is the depth below the surface, and you get different layers here. Old woman's 150 to 1100 years before present. These arrowheads were 1100 to 1700 years before present. This type 1700 to 1900 years, 1900 to 3200 years, 4200 to 5800 years before present. Okay, so and then the bedrock layer. So, as the buffalo would fall down, parts of them, shattered bones and stuff, would remain and build up the soils up to the present day surface. So you're looking back in time and getting a record based on the arrowhead. You can also do dating through the layers. So it's really quite fascinating. This shows some of the work, University of Calgary excavations. And here, over time, bone tools, rock rubble, and dirt formed layers as deep as 10 meters, radiocarbon dating. The deepest layer shows the jump was first used about 6,000 years ago. Large stone blocks have fallen from the cliff, crushing the deposits. The jump was used so often that very little soil built up between hunts, so the bone and tool layers from different hunts stacked directly on top of each other. And it's difficult to separate the thick bone and artifact layers into individual hunts. So not much soil built up because they frequently did the hunts. I mean, the hunts were highly organized affairs. Basically, up on the top, I should actually climb up there and have a look, but I don't think there's a path going up there. But up on the top, there were channels, sort of, and they were delineated by cairns, which are piles of rock, so many different piles of rock, to direct sort of a passageway from about 3 kilometers or maybe 5 kilometers, 3 miles away, where you'd get the buffalo sort of herded into a region, and then you'd get them to sort of start stampeding between the rock cairns, and you'd have a lot of your guys, a lot of your hunters in the Blackfoot dressed up as coyotes and wolves, and they'd be standing between the cairns, whooping and yelling and scaring the life out of the buffalo so that they would keep running in the herds and then running right over the cliff. Now, with the name Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump, I thought it was just because the buffalo were getting their heads smashed in, but apparently there was a young brave who hadn't seen the hunt, and I guess it was a rite of passage of growing older. You go and you participate in the hunt, and what he did is he came along and he hid underneath. He got right up against the rock face, and the buffalo were herded and they were flying over the rock face, and he would see them go flying down like he was behind a waterfall. But the hunt that year was very, very successful, so more buffalo kept coming and more buffalo kept coming, and they piled up, and he was squished between the buffalo coming down, not dead but still flailing, and the rock face, and he got his head smashed in. So that's where the name comes. When the hunters that were driving the buffalo over came down to do the slaughter and divvy up the buffalo, they found this guy on the cliff, and here's another image of it. They found this brave, dead against the cliff face, squished by all the buffalo. So I should actually keep an eye on where I'm walking, because the sign coming in said that a bear has been seen in this area, and keep an eye out. Travel in groups, it said. So I was traveling with a friend, and I wasn't too worried about the bear because I'm sure I can outrun my friend if the bear was to appear. I mean, you don't have to be able to outrun the bear. You just have to be able to outrun the people that you're with if you spot a bear in the woods, of course. And anyway, he's disappeared. If I was a bear, it would be this little region here where I'd hide, right? Just in the bushes behind, and pop out, because it's too hot a day for people really here. It's also too hot a day for the bear. It's probably down hiding somewhere in a shady area near water. I'm sure that's what I would do if I was in its situation. Just getting to the clearing, and just have a few more looks at what we can see over the cliff face, and get another view of things. So driving here, a lot of farms, of course, a lot of farmland. A lot of irrigation was going on. Here's a different view of the rock face, and the trail, signs from the trail, and so on. So there's awful lot of irrigation going on because it's very, very dry here. It's even drier and hotter as you go further west, but I think it was much hotter here a few days ago. It was high 30s a few days ago in this region, and it's tapered off. It's, as I said, it's about 33 or something, 33 Celsius today. So, these views across the plains are pretty spectacular. It's really tough to get your head around the scale. Like, stuff that you see in the distance seems like miniatures of things. You see a train on train tracks going off, and it could be 10, 20 miles away, and you see it, and it looks like a little toy. Normally in most landscapes that people live in, you don't have this much open space, right? You're in a city, you see buildings, building over, houses, etc. You don't really see too much. You really lose a perspective on, the size of things, space of things. And then, I can understand how people that, are farmers or live in the Great Plains, they don't like cities, right? They go into cities and they feel claustrophobic, and because they live in these wide open spaces, whereas there's a nice little birdie. Whereas we city dwellers, urban dwellers, we come to a place like this and we're just amazed that we can see so far, and we take lots of photographs and stuff, and so I think we humans we like new things, right? We like to have new experiences, and instead of if we're in a place that has a certain sort of landscape, we really enjoy trips to places to learn new things, and it sort of expands the mind and keeps the mind going. So it's not that busy here, but it's very hot day, but they just opened up recently. So up there is an Interpretive Center, and anyway, thank you for listening, and I hope you're enjoying my videos from this trip. Okay, bye for now.